Hello, history lovers! With April 14th through the 15th being the anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic, I wanted to talk about some of the passengers. Now, there were over 2,000 people on board the Titanic. That's a lot of individual stories. Unfortunately, we're never going to know the majority of those stories because the majority of them weren't even recorded. Most of the people on Titanic were just average everyday people trying to come to America to live a better life. They didn't have billions of dollars. They weren't leaving their mark on history in any other way than trying to just survive. And unfortunately, history doesn't record the stories of your average person too often. But I wanted to talk about some of the passengers who might be lesser known or might have their stories completely misunderstood. Now, one of the first people I wanted to talk about is Robert Hitchens. He is very much villainized when it comes to his story. Undeservedly so, in my opinion. Now, you might not know his name, but you're going to remember him from the movie as the guy who refused to go back for any of the survivors.
Knock it off. You're scaring me. Come on, girls. Grab an oar. Let's go.
Are you out of your mind? We're in the middle of the North Atlantic. Now, do you people want to live or do you want to die?
Sorry about the low picture quality. Sometimes I'm able to download a video clip, sometimes I'm not. And unfortunately, this is sometimes the best I can do. If you want to see what the real Robert Hitchens looked like, here's a picture of him. After the sinking, Hitchens gained a reputation as a coward. Now, this is a guy who served in both world wars and does not strike me at all as being a cowardly person. His job on the Titanic was quartermaster. He was one of 7 quartermasters. Basically, he was in charge of actually turning the steering wheel. Now, very famously, the order was given hard to starboard when the iceberg was spotted. It was believed that they could turn and miss the iceberg in time. And on a smaller ship, that would have been a great plan. Unfortunately, there was just too much Titanic coming too fast, and they were not able to turn in time. Although the myth that the Titanic didn't corner well is a myth. She actually did corner very well for her size, but there was simply not time, and nobody was really used to handling a ship this size. The Titanic was the biggest ship in the world at that point. So they didn't have a complete understanding of how fast can she turn, how fast can she stop. So the order hard to starboard was given, and nobody can really be blamed for making that call. It seemed right at the time with the knowledge that they had. But now, Hitchens was blamed for making that turn, even though he was given the order that he believed to be correct and followed that order. There were even accusations that said, oh, he turned the wheel wrong. No, he did not. We know that because of where the iceberg hit and the way she was turning at the time of the collision. He did what he was told to do and what anyone in his position would have believed to be the correct thing to do. Now, let's go back to his conduct in the lifeboat. He was in Lifeboat 6 along with Molly Brown, who famously had confrontations with him pretty much the whole time. Was he a coward for not going back for others? Well, it can be argued that he was using what I'm sure he saw as common sense. With Titanic being as huge as she was, everyone was afraid that she was going to create a lot of suction going down that would have pulled everyone, including anyone in a nearby lifeboat, down with her. So it was thought the best idea was get as far away as you can as quick as you can. In fact, Hitchens had been given orders to go to a light that was seen nearby, believed to be that of a fishing ship. Possibly the Samson, which would have been doing illegal whaling, but it is unconfirmed if that light that they saw was the Samson. Was it another boat? Was it something else entirely that nobody could really name? A blink off a faraway iceberg from the light hitting it, right? It's impossible to really be sure what that other light was. But Hitchens was told, take the passengers that are in your boat, go to that light, drop the passengers off, return. After dropping the passengers off, which was what he intended to do. Unfortunately, there was no other ship, or at least none that they ever reached. And of course, they ended up being picked up by the Carpathia along with all of the other survivors who were rescued. After this, Hitchens' reputation was basically destroyed, and besides which, he suffered from PTSD from this for the rest of his life. His wife eventually left him, taking the kids. He began to drink hard, and this is incredibly sad. He tried to end his own life on two different occasions, and once was actually arrested for attempting to unalive someone else. The other person survived, but this shows how much this messed him up mentally. He was never the same again, and he died in 1940 at sea, but not as a result of a ship sinking. It was during the war, and he actually died of a heart attack in his bunk while the ship was docked, or at least anchored. Bottom line is, the stress of the Titanic and what happened and the guilt of the aftermath is pretty much what led to his early death, relatively early death. But still, I can't help feeling sorry for him learning his full story. And as I said, I don't believe him to be a coward, especially given his military service. He did what he thought was best at the time, and had he gone back, I'm sure he believed if we go back, we're either going to get sucked under or we're going to get swamped by other survivors, and we're just going to be another group of dead people. That he didn't believe he would have done any good. And so I'm sure he did the best he could with the knowledge that he had. Oddly enough, his grave was only recently rediscovered, and a news story in Scotland covers his family members being there when his gravestone was finally put up. It had been unmarked until this point.
100th anniversary of the disaster and the research of his great-granddaughter.
We're so delighted, the family of Robert Hitchens, to be able to unveil the headstone for him.
Sally helped find her relative through the efforts of Ian Burnett of Aberdeen City Council.
Did he make the right choice that night? Well, I think he did the best he could with the knowledge he had. And I think that's all anybody could do in those kind of circumstances. Now, two other passengers I wanted to talk about are Mikkel and Edmond Navratil. And here's a picture of the two boys as they were in 1912, ages 3 and 2. Now, these two boys were too young to understand, thankfully, but their parents had just gone through a very messy divorce. And their dad wanted his kids in his life. He made a very questionable decision about how to do that, though. He took the two boys without their mother knowing and decided to take them on the Titanic. He later told the boys that he had hoped that their mother would join them later, but obviously this wasn't a good idea. Their mother had no idea where her kids were. They'd been supposed to be spending time with their dad, and then suddenly everybody was gone. Now, their dad did not survive the sinking, But here we have a clip of Mikkel, who was the elder of the two boys, telling what happened that night.
This memory, I have this feeling that it was only yesterday. So vivid it has remained. My father brought me into the lifeboat and then asked me to tell my mother how much he loved her.
Their father's name was also Mikkel, so one of the two brothers was named after him, and it's, of course, incredibly sad that he lost them in this way, that they lost him in this way, rather. There were so many families that were torn apart that night. Well, of course, these two little boys, they weren't with anyone who spoke their language. They were terrified. They needed someone to look after them, and thankfully, one of the other survivors, Mary Kelly, who would later be Mary Kelly Heslin, was in the lifeboat with them and looked after them until they got to New York, and then the authorities took over finding their mother for them. Now, Mary Kelly was very lucky in that she was coming from Ireland to New York to marry her fiance, who would come ahead of her. And luckily, she found him, everything was happy, and they had a wonderful married life together. So here's a picture of her, and I think it's very sweet that in the midst of the tragedy, she took it on herself to look after these two young boys. These are only a few of the many, many lives affected that night. And I hope to cover more of these every year to give a more human aspect to the tragedy. It's strange, you think of all those lives lost, but it means a lot more when you think of all these people as individuals. So I hope to learn a lot more about all the people whose lives were touched by that night. I hope you found this informative. I hope it gave a highlight to some of the people who deserve to be remembered. And until next time, take care.